if they're being a pain in the butt, even in the quoting process already, there's a lot of like red flags.
Hard pass.
Yeah. And I think as a business owner, especially as a small business owner, like you got to just lay it down and just be like, listen, this is not going to work, because if they're already a pain in the butt in the quoting process, I don't want to see what they're going to be
as
when
a client.
Inevitably something happens.
Welcome to the Big Brand Theory podcast by Blackwood Creative.
There's a saying in our groups that we go to. We particularly are part of a BNI group, which is Business Networking International. Nevertheless, we get together and we talk about our businesses, and we share about our ideal customers. And one of the things that they say in there, which I'm so grateful that they do, is that you're not supposed to say, I'm looking for anyone. Because then you're just anyone, who, whatever, and almost anybody is my customer, all that kind of stuff. A lot of people, especially as they're like just getting started in business, they're like, yeah, anybody, I'll take that business, I'll take this business, anybody will be fine. But there's a problem with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the problem with just taking business from anybody that's knocking on your door? Hey, I'm here to give you money. I mean, we would think, right? It's just like, sure, I'll take it and I'll do the work.
I think it's very industry dependent. So like print shop, like that is very much a revolving door of almost the any man that needs something printed. But like if you're a niche of some kind, like wedding photography, stakes are a little bit different than like printing, a handful of business cards versus thousands of dollars all day event that you're covering and you only get one shot to do. Like if you mess up the business cards, you're like, it's gonna be another day, but I got them, no worries.
Yeah.
If me, I'm like, oh, my card's fragged, it's like, they're gone forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't be like, can we redo that whole kiss, the whole thing? They're not gonna be down for that.
No, and I think that's like the easiest thing to say about working with everybody is that you're better off finding your key leads by targeting the people that you want to work with. So if you try to work with everybody, you're opening up, you're putting a lot of cats in that bag.
Yeah.
And you're gonna run into more problems than just niching down and finding what you want to work with.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of value in saying, in a lot of times I think at the beginning, be like, I'll just take kind of whatever. But as stuff comes in, there's a lot of value in paying attention to who you work best with, right? Because especially as a small business, you have your own personality you're bringing to it, and you have a specific work style and all that kind of stuff that for some people you blend with really well, and others it just doesn't.
Right.
And so as you pay attention to the people coming in, you're like, that kind of customer is not, for whatever reason, the best to work with for some reason, but this one, we like to work with them or something like that. So
you hit it right there with the ideal customer. And if you're in a business and you're not mapping your ideal customer, like, hey, our target is to spend this amount a month in our products or our services or whichever. Generally they come from this area more so than all others. They prefer this style over this style more 10 to 1. Like once you find that and you can really like almost reap what you sow, like instead of, like the everyman and like, again, opening up the floodgates of like, this is a great sale, this is a horrible sale, this is a horrible sale, this is a great sale, you're going to run into more of the first. You're going to have where if you're targeting accordingly and you're finding what you want to work with, you're going to have that more. And when you have the people that you want to work with and the ideal customer that's going to spend a median amount that you want, you make more money and you have a better quality of service and a better customer experience. And that's crucial.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of goes into like this whole idea of of really, if you try to serve everybody, you're not going to serve all of them really well.
No.
You're going to come in and you're going to say, well, I'm too busy. I've got all this other stuff, and you're going to look down and you're going to say, look at all these clients we have, but they're all, 80% of them are low paying and high maintenance and all that stuff. And you're like, I don't really want to work with them. I like this top 20%, and that's your goal. That's your ideal client. It's the top 20% that are probably giving you 80% of your revenue.
Right.
And you pay attention to those demographics, those types of, if it's a B2B, those types of businesses, all of that type of stuff, and what type of, this can even dictate like the types of services or products that you have to say, like, what are the ones that they want? Right. And you can look at, I don't need these other ones because my core clientele doesn't use it. So if I don't have that, I'm going to lose some of my lower 80% clients, but all that's okay. It's making room for more of the best stuff and not just the good or okay stuff.
And that's the refinement of your services over time. Right. Like you said, when you start out, I mean, even with me, with wedding photography, I would say the first 10 weddings that you shoot are generally just all across the board. Like you have, like, it could be a cheap at the park wedding. It could be a very expensive at the park wedding. It could be whatever. But generally, you learn who you work best with the more you work. Right. And if you're not doing that and you're just kind of coasting, like you said, you're not servicing as best as you can if you niche down and you find your ideal client. And the other part that you said about, the top 20%, yes, you want to gauge that, because if you only go by the top 20% and you cut out 80% at any point in time, if those 20% leave, then you're in hot water.
Yeah, you don't want all your eggs in one basket.
Right. And that's the part where I think being targeted is appropriate, because you can still target and still service, close to your ideal client. But if somebody walks in and they're completely, a B type versus we want A types, like, then it just doesn't work. Like, there's no point in forcing a non-ideal client to be an ideal client, because they never will be. Yeah.
And I think that there's a generic also application to this, in that when you look at any type of customer, even if they check most of the boxes of your ideal clientele, there's also things like other boxes that, like, you need to look at. For our cleaning business, for example, if we have somebody who is bugging us on price, but is also very picky on the cleanliness of their home, we don't really want to work with them. Now, we want to do a great job, but we feel like you're probably never going to be a happy customer, because you don't want to pay for it and you're going to nitpick all of our work. We'd rather have somebody who says, yeah, I want a high standard of cleanliness, but I understand that with that comes a higher price tag. Now, you may have others that they don't have that high of a level of, I need it to be perfect, I don't want to see a speck of dust anywhere, but they're a little more concerned about the price, and that's okay. Like, those two things can go together, but I'm going to make sure that I'm not combining the wrong things and ending up with what I think is an ideal customer turning into a terrible customer, because I'm just wanting that sale so bad.
Have you ever heard the saying, we accept the love that we think we deserve? Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a meaning of, like, literally, like, if you want to get treated poorly or whatever, that's pretty much what you're going to get. Like, if you have your standards of what you expect, then you raise the bar there.
Right.
The same thing can be said for clients. Like, you accept the clients that you think you deserve. So if you sit there and think, I deserve everything, then you're going to get everything. And that comes with problems.
Yeah.
And if you try to be hyper niched and only work with, like, the top 1% in your area, that's everybody's trying to work with that.
Right.
So, like, the game is cutting you out strong. So, like, you want to niche, you want to find your ideal client, but you also don't want to cut out too much work in, like, an ego-driven, I'm too good for, these clienteles now. Like that's a one-way ticket out of owning a business.
Yeah. And we've had experience with that with other people that we've tried to work with. We'll say like subcontractors or stuff like that, where they're like, okay, here's how much I'm going to charge. And you're like, okay, like clearly you have this level of expectation or thinking about yourself, which is good in certain scenarios. But there are other scenarios where you need to be a little bit more realistic with what the market's demanding, and maybe your ideal situation, your ideal customer isn't realistic in the market you're in, and you need to pivot, you need to adjust, you need to, and which is hard. We don't want to and I'm not encouraging anybody to just downgrade their level of work so that they can fit in the market. Maybe you're just in the wrong market or you're searching in the wrong place, but really you got to pay attention to that aspect of is this going to work in the market that I'm in?
That is one of the most truest statements in business is you can have a great business, a great product, a great service, a great team. But if you're in the wrong area where they don't need it, but there's 10 other places that they do, I mean, how many businesses have failed just from being in the wrong spot?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that cheap piece of real estate over in the, a little bit, bad side of town, with crime or whatever, it might seem like an opportunity, but then it might not be. It's one of those kind of things where it's a double-edged sword. You can cheap out on one thing and gain the ability for something else, but usually when you cheap out on something, it usually bites you in the butt.
So how do we go about if we know that we can't just accept work and work with anybody, what should we be focusing on or paying attention to, right? What are some of the indicators of this is going to be a good customer, this is not going to be a good customer? We already mentioned the one where if they're high maintenance but are, pegging you on price, that's probably never going to be a great customer no matter what business you're in. But what are some other indicators of this? What things should we look for?
My default for my ideal customer across the board, good communication. So if you send an email to them, they get back to you within a few hours or that same day. If you email somebody and they take a week to get back to you, that's not ideal. Yet that's not going to work when you have a design you're working on or you're trying to schedule something with them and you can't hear from them in a week. That's bad. People that are realistic about budget. So it's okay if you have a smaller budget, but be realistic of what that's going to entail. If you have a small budget, but you have, what's that saying where it's I have fine wine once, but I have beer taste or something, whatever it is.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's you want all the top shelf things, but you don't have the budget for it. It's just you don't get the top shelf with that. That's just the reality of it. Things cost money. Yeah. But as long as they're in tune with that and they understand hey, I know it's not the biggest budget and what can we do within that? That's my favorite thing to hear. It's not, I want all this. It's what can we do within our scope that will bring us results? And I'm going to be happy to talk with you and be I can do this, this, and this. We can do a shoot here. We can, have bi-monthly or quarterly shoots or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you just automatically set the bar, we have to do monthly shoots, we have to have thousands of dollars in ad spend and all that. If you set that precedent, then you cut out so much business. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much about the money even. Yes, it's good to have an ideal client that spends a good amount of money. Everybody likes that. But I would rather take a medium budget client that is highly communicative and understanding of what their budget is getting than a high budget, nitpicky, never answers the phone call and just really hard to work with. And you can never seem to make them happy with whatever you provide.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. I think it's a balance in that stuff of just like you're saying, I could have a high budget or even a low budget, and either one is there might be okay either way if it fits within my range, but if they're not communicating, if they're being a pain in the butt, even in the quoting process already, there's a lot of like red flags.
Hard pass.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as a business owner, especially as a small business owner, like you got to just lay it down and just be like, listen, this is not going to work, because if they're already a pain in the butt in the quoting process, I don't want to see what they're going to be
As a
when
client.
inevitably something happens, right? Some mistake is made, whatever. Like, what are they going to expect from you? Are they going to blow up? Are they going to, go extreme and try and sue you? Like, what? Just no, thank you. Like, this is not a good fit. There's a lot of fish in the sea, and it's funny how true that is, because we took a road trip down to Florida and back up to Indiana, and as we passed through town by town by town, I was just like, I didn't even think about it, but like it just dawned on me. Look at this city. This city is the same size as the one I live in, and an hour later, there's another one that's the same size. There are so many opportunities for you to grow your business and to get new customers. There's so much out there that you don't have to take the customers that are going to be terrible. Like, you can be picky about it, grow a little slower, and just work smarter and not harder in that way.
Gary Vee, I remember watching a TikTok of him, and he said like a one-liner, like he always does, but it was like, where you focus is where you stay. Mm-hmm. So if you focus on local and finding all the local and staying local, you will stay local. If you try to branch out and you don't focus on that, then you'll never branch out. So it's just as simple as that. Like, what you focus on is where you stay.
Yeah.